Alright, so now we've got all of our parts back from the machine shop. It's time to start our reassembly. And as they say on the TV shows, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. So let's get started. I've already cut out the notch for the brake line. So when I go to reinstall it, the brake line will pass through there. Next I'm going to install the ABS wheel sensor. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it to help it slide in a little easier and to seal it up good. It comes with some grease on it, but I'm going to add a little bit more. And we'll gently tap it into place. Put our 10mm nut back in, and we'll tighten that down. The torque specs for this call for 17 inch-pounds, so you want to be really careful when you're torquing that down not to over tighten it. 17 inch-pounds is right at the bottom limit of the smallest torque wrench I have, so we're going to give it a shot and see how that works. Well, the wheel speed sensors went in incredibly easy. I was really surprised. I suppose they just came out so hard from the old ones because all the rust and corrosion that had swelled up the hole. So with a little bit of grease, they popped right in, and now we'll be moving on to installing the wheel seals on the axle tubes. Alright, so we're ready to install our new wheel seals. This is a new one I got from Rock Auto. It's manufactured by Timken. We have our two-piece seal driver. It's got an outer diameter that matches the outer diameter of the seal and an inner diameter to keep it all centered. So we're going to put a little grease on it, help it go in easier, and seal it well. And then we'll begin tapping it in place. Insert the seal into the housing, the axle tube housing. We're going to start tapping it in. I think it's going in a little crooked, so we'll have to work on this edge a little bit. Being pretty stubborn. There, she's going a little better. Because this is a two-piece seal driver, I'm going to take this middle one out now, see if I can get that seat just a little bit further down in with just the outer diameter. Got to get a shorter screw. Back in business, so we can drive this all the way home now. And that's it, our wheel seal is in. With our wheel seal in place, the next thing I'm going to install is the O-ring around the outer axle tube. I'm going to coat it with a light coat of oil first, and then we'll go ahead and install it. Fits right over the axle tube where the bearing meets and the wheel assembly meets with the axle tube. That complete, we're on to installing the axle. Alright, now we're ready to go ahead and slide the axle and the wheel assembly back onto the axle tube. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous about this piece. I think this is going to be the hardest part. This is rather heavy, and again, you got to thread the needle to keep it straight and centered on the axle tube to get past that oil baffle. There it stuck right in. Went right into the differential, and it's all flat. We'll go ahead and reinstall our nuts that hold the wheel assembly onto the axle tube. We'll tighten them down to specifications, and then we'll check to make sure that the axle is engaging the differential fully. I'm going to try to pop it in neutral and see if I can't turn the drive shaft and move the wheel. Well, I'm happy to report that the axle tubes are back in. I'm relieved it went a lot smoother and easier than I thought it was going to. It doesn't require a whole lot of force to get those to go inside there and to match the splines up with the differential. So you don't need to shove it in there, and don't press too hard. Just go lightly and gently and it'll fall into place. Then you can bolt it up and torque them down to, I believe it's 44 foot-pounds. So we're going to move on now to reassembling the rest of the brake system and put the wheel back on. I'm going to start this portion of the reassembly by attaching the brake line. I'm going to thread it through that notch in the bracket that we cut. Get it to seat down properly. I'll now put the tensioner clip on to hold the brake line in place. That's our brake line securely in place again. Now we're going to reattach the parking brake cable to the backing plate. The little tab goes forward. Little bracket's getting in the way here. So we're going to thread that through that hole. Press it into place, and I'm going to have to put the camera down here to put the nut in, the 10mm nut to hold that to the backing plate. So we'll finish that up and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, our parking brake emergency brake cable has been reattached to the backing plate, and our final piece that we need to do on the back side here is to reinstall the connector for the ABS wheel sensor. So we'll slide that on, make sure the clip snaps in place, and then we'll put the outer protector on. Okay, the next component we're going to reinstall is the parking brake tensioner arm. We have to get inside here, and you put this clip just over the parking brake end. You push it on until you can get the parking brake cable to engage those two arms. It's pretty hard to do with just one hand here, but you should be able to get it in there so the parking brake cable rests on those arms and it snaps in place like that. That's it for reconnecting the tensioner arm. We can go ahead and get our brake shoes on next and the star adjuster wheel. Alright, well we've got our emergency brake cable tensioner on. It's time to go ahead and put on one of the brake shoes. We're going to go ahead and slide the pin through the backing plate. And we'll put on our shoe and hold it in place with the spring clip. If you forgot which way your brake shoes go, there's two blades on each end. The thinner one goes up towards the top. Okay, that's our first shoe. Now we'll go over to the other side and do the other shoe and the star adjuster wheel. Okay, our brake shoes are in, the star adjuster wheel is in, now it's time to put in the springs. There's our brake shoes, our springs, brake cable adjuster, and a star wheel, all installed. I went ahead and put the disc rotor back on the truck, and now I'm going to be adjusting that star wheel for the parking brake. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tighten this up by ratcheting the star wheel up until it won't go any further, and it locks this wheel in place. And then I'm going to back it off 8 revolutions, 8 little wheel adjustments per Toyota's recommendation to set the parking brake properly and the tension properly. So we'll see if we can get her tightened up here so the rotor won't move anymore, and then we'll adjust it back it off 8 times and see how that goes. Okay, so I tightened that star adjuster wheel all the way down. The wheel no longer moved, and I ratcheted it down 8 times, and I still had just a little bit of drag from the emergency brake. So I went one more. You can still kind of hear it, but it's just barely making any noise. I think that'll go ahead and wear off fairly quickly once I drive it. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it set right there. Alright, our next step now that we have the disc rotor on is to go ahead and reinstall our caliper bracket. The caliper bracket's reinstalled. Now it's time to untie our caliper and go ahead and mount that up. Put the brake pads in and button it all down. Okay, we've got our caliper bracket back in place. It's time now to continue on with the installation. We'll put on our brake pads and we'll untie the caliper and attach that, and that will complete this side. We put a little bit of grease on the spots that rub into the clips. Just a little bit. You don't want to get any on your brake pads. Obviously that would be bad. It doesn't take a lot of grease either, just a little bit to keep them from seizing up in there over time. Go ahead and get our first brake pad in. Why this one's being stubborn? It certainly is. Try this other pad instead, maybe it'll go in easier. Okay, we can untie our caliper. Install that. Little rubber boots aligned properly. They're always tricky, it seems like. Then we can install our caliper pins. Make sure when you put these back in, you clean them really well, and then grease this shaft with the proper brake and caliper grease. And then I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on these threads as well, so that they're easier to get out the next time around if you do this. So some grease on this tube, the shaft. Just a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. we're ready to slide them in. Get these threaded all the way in, and then we'll tighten them down and torque them to 65 foot-pounds. Well, we've got our caliper installed, and that was the last piece. So that completes our reassembly for a Toyota Tundra wheel bearing change and everything associated with it. I hope this video helped you.